Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. About 2 years ago, I made a couple of videos about the trouble the legacy automakers were going through because of the EV transition. Not because of them losing money on EVs or because they didn't know anything about software and the car of the future would be a software-defined vehicle. No, it was just about how winding down ICE engine production could kill them all on their own. But on top of that, I also talked about how legacy automakers' so-called asset, like their ICE car factories, was not an asset at all, but actually a huge ticking time bomb, as they would have to refurbish them all to make EVs instead of ICE cars. And Volkswagen showed us back in 2019 just how costly that was. It did cost as much as building a whole new factory, but they would not get a whole new factory, but just a refurbished old factory. And all of this is now starting to play out, and we see the German automakers losing their profits, desperately trying to cut costs and raising prices on ICE cars. But the crazy thing is, most of them are only about 10% into this transition to BEVs. This is about to get much worse. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So, the winding down of the engines and the refurbish of the factories that I just talked about, well, all of that will hurt the legacy automakers, as the cost of winding down the ICE engine and retooling their ICE factories could be more than what the companies can take, and their suppliers might die in the process before they even have their ICE engines wind down. And we are seeing this play out right now, as they are starting to hear about German automakers having trouble, and especially in Germany. But there are so much more hitting them right now, it is not looking very good for the legacy automakers, as Stacker Auto also shared on X about this article. Suppliers face a double blow. Legacy automakers stumble in their EV transition while ICE market are shrinking. The ripple effect through the supply chain could be devastating. Yes, and the German auto industry in particular, its mid-sized suppliers face severe challenges threatening its competitiveness. A recent VDA survey reveals a concerning trend of investment reallocation, with 37% of companies planning to move investment abroad, primarily to other EU countries, Asia and North America. The industry struggles with multiple pressures: overwhelming bureaucracy, 85% reporting significant burden, higher energy costs, 71% affected by electricity price, and growing order shortage. The transformation toward climate neutrality and digitalization is forcing structural change, with 45% of companies currently reducing their workforce despite skill shortage. Only 1% of companies plan to increase investment in Germany, while 13% intend to cancel investment entirely. The outlook for 2024 remains pessimistic, with 25% of companies expecting condition to worsen. Oh yes, but this is also because the old car companies have just been doing like they have always been doing for decades. Because if it ain't broken, don't fix it, right? But their system is broken, as they are dying in Germany at a time where Tesla is giving all their Berlin employees a 4% raise and giving 500 temporary workers permanent job, and is still looking to expand their Berlin factory, not cutting back, not leaving the German market like all the other guys are talking about. And the Germans are desperately trying to find ways to reduce their costs, and Volkswagen and Audi are trying by raising prices on their ICE cars. Audi will increase prices for combustion models in December 2024. This is due to new EU requirements and brands weakening BEV sales. Volkswagen raised its ICE prices a month ago. Vehicles from the Audi brand is the A1, the A6, the A7, the A8, the Q2, the Q3, the Q7 and the Q8 model series are all affected by the price increase. Another desperate attempt to reduce losses. Yes, making your inferior product, the ICE car, more expensive in this time is probably not the right solution, but we will see how that one plays out. But it seems like they don't get what is needed, or maybe they are just incapable of doing what is needed, because, as Alex could share on X, instead of changing technology for the better, Volkswagen is changing their design, and I'm not convinced it's better. The new design of the Volkswagen ID.2 BEV is supposed to convince people who are in the market for a not really low-cost electric vehicle, but I believe consumers have understood by now software is a key for a good driving experience and not the looks. Yes, Volkswagen is making the Fisker mistake here, thinking the lack of demand is because of lack of styling. But Elon did explain this all the way back in 2012.
Well, Tesla is a really different company to Fisker. I mean, Tesla is a hardcore technology company, and we do really serious engineering. In the case of Fisker, was headed by Henrik Fisker, and he's a designer, so he's good at sort of the styling of the cars, but he thinks it's all about styling, and it's not. You know, the reason we don't have electric cars is not for lack of styling.
Right.
Yes, it's not because the lack of a good design. If the ID.2 will not sell well, it will be because of bad user experience or in software or driving or charging or whatever. Volkswagen will try to cheapen down to make this car as cheap as possible for them to produce. It will not be because of a bad design. And as I reported last week, the old guys are losing their profits quickly at the moment, and their ICE cars are shrinking fast as China, the Germans' biggest car market, are shifting quickly to EVs, and the Chinese don't really want Germans' EVs either. So they are both losing their ICE business in China and losing in the EV race in China. So we are seeing them losing their profits, just as we have been talking about for years. But as I talked about 2 years ago, this is all before the really expensive change has come, as their shift to EVs and winding down the ICE engine has only just begun. Most legacy automakers are from 5 to 20% BEVs in their production, so most of them have between 80 to 95% of their production that are still needed to be shifted to BEVs. So the expensive shift has hardly started, and they are already losing their profits and trying desperately to cut cost. Because, like I explained 2 years ago, the so-called asset that many are claiming the old Germans' debt is tied up to is not really an asset at all. Some are, of course, because that is tied up to their financial system where they loan money to the customers. But this is all tied up to their ICE business and their old outdated ICE factories, which Volkswagen has about 136 factories around the world making ICE cars. And those factories are not an asset, as I said before. As firstly, just refurbishing the Zwickau factory took over 26 months, so over 2 years. Tesla built the whole Berlin factory faster than that. And that cost Volkswagen $1.3 billion to do so. And even though this has become Volkswagen's state-of-the-art production facility for their EVs, they are not keeping up with Tesla when it comes to production ramp, and the factory still takes 3 times longer to produce an ID.3 compared to how long it takes Tesla to produce the Tesla Model 3. And the factory is not even fully ramped. Volkswagen said back in 2019 they would ramp it up to 330,000 units a year. But 4 years later, in 2023, the Zwickau factory only produced 247,000 units. But Volkswagen spent $1.3 billion on turning the old Zwickau factory into an EV factory. To me, that is not an asset then, but an expense. And Volkswagen have 136 factories. To update those factories to produce EVs, which they eventually will have to do, will cost Volkswagen somewhere in the amount of $150 to $170 billion if we just say it will cost them $1.3 billion to transform all of them. But all these factories are supposed to be an asset for Volkswagen. Yeah, an asset that is going to cost Volkswagen about $170 billion. That is not an asset. You can add that asset to their coming debt instead, as well as all the other so-called assets surrounding their ICE business that is going to be worthless in 10 years' time. And Volkswagen already have over $200 billion in debt. They are truly a train wreck in slow motion. But now that their ICE business is falling and very fast in China, the other big, expensive and almost impossible task is to wind down their old ICE engines without their suppliers going bankrupt in the process. Let me just show you this clip that I showed 2 years ago from Autoline Daily that talked with James Martin that has actually experienced what it will say to wind down an ICE engine.
I had the responsibility to develop a plan to take the LT5 engine out of production. I was actually at Stillwater at Mercury Marine when the last engines came off the line because my team was buying them to package them up and put them in storage for warranty service. And that was actually just kind of the cherry on top of the whole pie of making that into production plan. But in bringing that engine out of production, we wound up having to spend a lot of time working with existing suppliers, explaining to them that your volume is going from here to zero in this amount of time. Or that, and this was an even tougher message for some of them, but we still need you to support service. We still need you to to support warranty replacement of components, and it was very difficult for those suppliers. Some of them went out of business during the process. Some of them went out of business before the engines left the line.
Listen to what he said. That's pretty alarming. Suppliers were going out of business even before the production of that engine came to an end, and that was on a specialty, low-volume engine. So what happens when a traditional car company has to shut down an ICE engine that's mass-produced? The ripple effect is going to be massive.
So not only did the legacy automakers promise their suppliers millions of BEVs in production by now, but they have not been able to deliver on those promises. But on top of that, their ICE suppliers are being hurt badly because of the lower demand for ICE vehicles. Remember, there is about a 40% overcapacity for producing cars in the world. And most of that is for ICE vehicles. And this is only the beginning, as ICE cars sales will fall completely off a cliff over the next 5 to 10 years. And even though the old legacy automakers might stop producing ICE cars, they still have millions of cars with warranties out there on the roads that still need parts that they might not be able to get. This is about to get messy really soon. And they are already feeling the pain of losing their profits and having to close plants, because Volkswagen closing 3 plants in Germany, as they have been talking about, is of course not just losing 30,000 employees to those plants, it is also closing down business for those 3 plants to their many suppliers. So it's going to have a ripple effect through the whole industry for the legacy automakers and their suppliers. And remember, someone like Volkswagen is only about 10% of BEV sales, and they are already struggling with cost, profits, plant closure, and firing employees. And they are just 10% in to the transition. If they think the cost is too high now, just wait until they have to wind down 50% of their ICE business and refurbish 50% of their ICE factories to BEV factories, and that is not even talking about them losing money on selling EVs still. Even though Volkswagen does sell more than 700,000 BEVs a year. And that is probably not going to change much over the next many years for Volkswagen, as they are stuck right now with their MEB platform. That will never really become profitable for them, in my opinion, because someone like Toyota realized as soon as they started production of the BEV platform for the BZ4X that they would never become profitable on that platform no matter how much they scaled it up. And that is why they ripped apart a Model Y and tried to copy everything they can from Tesla, and will have their next generation BEV platform ready in 2026 or maybe 2027. Whereas Volkswagen has pushed their truly next generation EV platform, the Trinity platform, out to 2032. Yeah, this is not looking good for the Germans right now. That is desperately trying to cut cost and raising price on their ICE cars and not really innovating with their BEV platform or their production method. And the expensive part of this transition has hardly started. They seem to be stuck in a very dark place. And some might think they're seeing the light of the end of the tunnel, but that light might just be a freight train called Tesla that is pushing the accelerator. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.